Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Good morning. So there was some issue in the sound, I guess. Now I think everything is audible. Now let's start with the video. So guys, in the today's video, we are going to discuss the entire analysis of the Hindu newspaper. We'll take all the articles, and if you are new here, you can download the explainer PDF from the Telegram channel. The link for the PDF has been given in the description box in the YouTube. The PDF is available into the Telegram channel. Moreover, you can visit the Telegram, and there also you can directly download the PDF. The name for the Telegram channel is Thinking Palette by Sahil. You can search it in the Telegram. Now, first of all, let's take the overview of the entire newspaper in order to understand that which articles are important in the today's newspaper. So we have here the page number 1. The first article talks about Democrats retain controls into the US Senate. So midterm elections were there into the USA. Now you don't need to follow too much it for the exam point of view. Then the G20 summit to focus on food energy security. So from the 15th, the G20 summit will be organized. Then moving on in the city section, the regional issues, fine, regional issues, etc. Political issues have been given. Not very much important with respect to the examination, so directly we'll be skipping and we'll reach to the editorial page. On the editorial page, the first article, behind the smoke screen around private finance, we'll see this particular article with respect to the environment, ecology, a sense of ending. That this particular article is talking about recent release of the convicts into the case of the assassination of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. Then saving the precious. So this particular article talk about the recent report that has been released talking about the groundwater condition. So we'll see this particular article. Beware the tempting apple of the Ukraine mediation. So guys, this article is talking about that recently there was a report in a American newspaper where it was said that American can mediate there was a report into the American newspaper where it was said that India can mediate the Ukraine Russia war that is going on, and the author is saying that we should resist such kind of a thing, etc. Now guys, with respect to the exam, the article is not containing much of a substance because the evolutionary details, right now the situations, etc., all things have been given. The curious case of, and one more thing I want to tell you guys here, that as Russia Ukraine war is going on, every article, because you see from past 9 months as the war has started, I think more than 100 of the articles have been published on this particular thing. So every article is not important, only the article which will have some of dimension which can be fit into the broader perspective of onto the broader perspective as how India's interests are inclined, or the foreign policy dimension or such dimension is there, only those articles you need to see. The curious case of EWS, we'll see this article as what it is talking about. Fine. Leading in economic measures, lagging on social measures. So this is a Gujarat report card. Fine. Basically guys, as the elections are going on that particular direction, these are the trends that are coming on. Fine. With respect to UPSC, not very much needed that you should go too much into the detail. Then the text and the context, new regulation for awarding PhDs. Fine. Then why has France ended its military operations in Sahel? And then are data localizations requirement necessary and proportionate? Fine, we'll take that. Then moving on, after that, no government reply, plea on search Caesar. Okay, Himachal Pradesh records 75.6% voter turnout as the voting has held into the Himachal Pradesh. Then population criteria for new Eklavya schools impractical. We'll see this particular article. A parliamentary panel has talked about that the challenges which will be there into the Eklavya residential schools. Then after that, moving on, the political articles, etc., not very much important for the examination. Okay. Extra regional fishing fleets present in Indian Ocean Navy. We'll see this particular article as what are the new challenges that are coming. Indian business groups are rising presence at COP27. So as right now the COP27 is underway in the Egypt. So the business houses, private players, NGOs, they are rising, and today this is the second, now in the present COP27, second highest presentation of the businesses, okay, etc., has been there. Then moving on, today on Monday we have this money wise page. The business page doesn't come. So now the money wise page contains the investing and all such kind of an advices. Fine. And usually the money wise page is not very much important. Fine. Now Moving on, the world, Biden will seek red lines in talks with the Xi today. Okay, so basically Xi Jinping, Joe Biden, fine, we know this particular thing, that the America and the China, they are basically in a kind of a confrontational mood that is going on, fine. Now in this particular direction, the red lines, the areas where both of them will not be tolerating, fine, the each other's interventions, fine, those particular lines will be emphasized by the USA when the talks with the China is going to be held. Now in this particular direction, then moving on, we have the sports page, and in the sports page much substance is not there. So this is all, guys, about the overview of the entire newspaper, and now let's discuss all these relevant articles one by one in the detail. Now starting up, so every day we start with the GS quotation, which can be used to complement your answers. So today we'll take the quotation from the Mark Twain. Mark Twain says that it is curious that physical courage should be so common in the world and moral courage so rare. Now see this thing. First of all, what do we mean by the courage? Courage, guys, see, never courage means the absence of fear. Courage means acting in the face of the fear, taking action in the face of fear. So when we talk about courage, often we equate it with the physical courage. But what about the moral courage, internal courage, courage of your character? That courage, we never emphasize on that particular dimension. So the Mark Twain says that the physical courage is very common, but the moral courage is very much rare. Actually, the moral courage will drive even the physical courage. So moral courage needs to be given its due importance. Fine, you can use this particular idea with respect to the GS paper number 4, ethics, human values. Fine. Now moving on. So first article that we are taking is from the text and the context, and the article talks about the data localization requirements. Data localization requirements necessary and proportionate. Now we'll see this particular article with respect to the GS paper number 3, okay, as well as the GS paper number 2, data governance issues. Now let's, first of all, before going in this particular article, let's see some of the very basic information which is important for you to understand this particular article. Now guys, what do we mean by data localization? Now the data localization means that the data which is being generated in a particular country, that data should be stored into the physical servers located in that particular country only. Now you see this thing, you are generating so much of the data every moment. Whenever you are onto the internet, you are searching for something, fine, you are uploading your photographs, you are sharing your personal details at many particular platforms. So what is happening? You are sharing lot of your data. Fine. Now this particular data, okay, basically guys, let me take one very basic example. Suppose you go on Amazon and you want to shop something. Now on Amazon you will make your account. In that account you will be uploading your personal information, your card information, all such kind of things. Now all this particular information is actually located at the Amazon's servers. Now these Amazon's servers are not there in India. So here the data localization will come in between. Data localization simply provides this particular thing, that whatever data is being generated, that is to be physically located in that particular country. Okay, so this is the data localization. Now guys, when we talk about the data localization, understand this particular thing, that today we say this particular thing, that the data is the new oil, and data has become even more important in terms of value even than the gold. So therefore every country, every government wants that they should have absolute control on the data that is being generated in their countries, and in this particular direction the data localization has become very much important. Now understand this particular thing, that data localization is important, but at the same time cross-border data flow, it is also important very much for the businesses. So right now there is a confrontation going on between the government on one hand and the businesses on one hand. Businesses want that the data should be freely flowing. Wherever we want to store data, we'll do that particular thing, but government want that no, the data should strictly be located in our own jurisdiction. So this particular data localization is controversy is going on, and this is in India, this is in all other countries that are there. Now understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the data localization, it is the process of storing data locally. Fine. Now, in this particular direction, the different countries have different law, and in this particular direction, the European Union have a particular law, that is the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. Now, the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) of the European Union mandates that the companies that are operating there, they have to locate their data within the European Union, within the boundaries of the European Union. Fine. And if they want to transfer some data from European Union to other country, then they need to make sure that in that particular country also there are the strong data regulations, there are the strong institutions which protect that particular data should not be compromised. So if any case a data is to be transferred, they need to have similar protection like that exists into the European Union. Then when we take the example of other country, that is the Russia, onto the data regulation. Now the Russia has one of the most strict laws with respect to the cross border flow of the data. They emphasize that every data which is being generated into the Russia, it is needed to be stored within the Russia only. It cannot be taken anywhere. Fine. Now I told you this particular thing, that as this particular data localization will be going on, there will always be the impacts that will be coming, that how the businesses are going to react. Because understand this particular thing, that when we talk about the data storage, data storage, it has many of the challenges associated with that. There are the technological challenges, then there are the logistic challenges, okay, there are the challenges related to the cost. Okay, so many a times when the data centers are there, they are located in the favorable locations, okay, where already there are the huge infrastructure that the data set that the companies have built. For example, today when we talk about, there is the Amazon cloud, there is the Amazon which runs its cloud service, there is Microsoft which runs its cloud service, okay, and they actually store a lot of data for the lot of websites, and these websites data, as they are being held by the Amazon, Microsoft, they have built their favorable infrastructure in some of the countries, and there these data are being stored. Now the point is that building such kind of infrastructure in every country will escalate the cost a lot. After that, there will be the technological and logistical problems also to have so many of the data centers. So therefore the businesses don't want such kind of a data regulation. Fine. Now understand this particular thing. As we are talking about the data localization in India also, there is the data localization that has become a kind of a big issue. Now in this particular direction, guys, when we talk about the recently withdrawn data protection bill, you might already be knowing, and I have discussed with you a many number of times, that government, first of all, the Supreme Court in the Puttaswamy case ruled that the right to privacy is fundamental right. Then after the Supreme Court judgment, government introduced the personal data protection bill, and within the personal data protection bill there was a provision about the data localization also. But now this personal data protection bill has been withdrawn, so that data localization provision has also been withdrawn. Now when we talk about data localization, it has been emphasized from a very long period of time. For example, the Reserve Bank of India, particularly few years back, specifically provided that all the card operators, their data has to be, card operators, Visa, MasterCard, whatever data they have, it has to be strictly be located into the India only. So from then the data localization has become a kind of an important thing. Now when we talk about the governments, governments look the data localization from the point of view of security, to counter the data breaches, fine, for that particular thing. Moreover, guys, when we talk about the data localizations, the government sees that they need to have a sovereign control, but the businesses see it from the economic point of view. Now when we talk about the developed country, many a times they use the sophisticated tools for the data mining, also for data surveillance also. When they have data stored in their own countries, they can go for surveillance and can keep the vigil, can keep the check on the citizens that is going on. Now when we talk about data localizations, I told you that right now there is different countries having different data localization laws. But anyhow, data localizations increases the cost for the businesses, and sometimes mid-sized businesses might not be able to afford the data localization. Now when I talk about the data localization, one particular point I want to tell you, understand this particular thing. Many a times that data is specifically being stored into the Scandinavian countries, temperate countries, or where the temperature is little bit cold. Why? because these data centers, they are to be basically, these data centers, they have to be provided a lot of cooling, and if these data centers are located into the hot countries, there the cooling expenditure will increase a lot, which will escalate the cost for these data centers. But when the temperate or the cold countries are there, by the natural, because of the natural conditions, they already have the cool temperature, so there the cooling expenditure will not be there. So this is also a big reason that the data centers are located in the cold European countries most of the times. Now, data is today the enabler for business. The data is today the enabler for many of the technologies, etc. So therefore, the data is to be controlled, but rather than the data localization, the article suggests that we can choose the alternative standards such as the strong encryption. Now see this particular thing. Why the entire argument of data localization comes? It comes because of the fact that the data might be misused, data might be abused. So we need to have the strong encryption of that particular data so that the data cannot be read, cannot be interpreted. So encryption can be a good solution. Now, moreover, understand that today when we talk about the hyper-connected world provides for free flow of information, and there the sovereignty based model might be having some kind of a problems, that is also to be seen. Then the globalization. Now you see, what is the meaning of this particular globalization? Globalization means a fusion of global with the local. Now this article is talking about that when we talk about the digital space, in the digital space we need to make sure that, see, countries should not have their own different laws with respect to the data localization. Rather, all the countries' laws on data localization should be harmonized with the universal data localization law. So we need to have such kind of a data localization laws that we all are harmonizing with each other. Entirely different set of data localization laws will not do. Then finally, it has been provided that when we talk about the data localization, fine, governments also need to assess the security of domestic systems, that whether they are equipped for storing the sensitive data or not. Now many a number of times Amazon, for example, provides this particular thing, that in India data localization will have a lot of problem, because in India the IT system is not very much strong, cyber security is not very much strong. So governments also need to invest in their own domestic capabilities, cyber capabilities, so that even if the data is stored in their own countries, it is not prone to breach, hacks, or such kind of things. So this is all about this particular article. Fine, I hope you have understood, and now we'll move to the next article. Saving the precious. Now this particular article will see with respect to the GS paper number GS paper number 1, groundwater. GS paper number 1, groundwater, geographical phenomena, geographical resources are mentioned there. In GS paper number 3 also. Fine, environment, will use this particular article. Now understand this particular thing, that first of all, what has happened recently, the Ministry of Water Resources, it has released a report, and the name of the report is National Compilation on Dynamic Groundwater Resources of India 2022 report. Is it clear or not? Fine. There's just one question, sir, kindly say on what basis we name western and eastern countries. Is it just because of direction or any other? No, broadly it is on direction. Okay, so from India, the west is, these are the western countries. Okay, so west and the east, there is a global aspect. Fine, the global west is there, then the east is there, so it is majorly on direction only. Now moving on. So recently, as I told you, that the Ministry of Water Resources has released the National Compilation on Dynamic Groundwater Resources in India 2022 report. Now this particular report has measured the groundwater situation in India, and it has compared the groundwater situation in the 2022 with 2020 and other years also. And the report is providing that in India, the condition of the groundwater has actually improved, and the improvement is best since the 2004. Now it has been provided that actually, now how you say that the groundwater is improving? Groundwater will improve if two conditions are there. Condition number one, the availability of groundwater into the aquifer needs to be increased. Availability of the groundwater into the natural aquifers needs to be increased, and secondly, the groundwater extraction needs to be minimized. If those two conditions will be met, we can say that the groundwater condition will improve. Now this 2022 report, it has provided that groundwater extraction is today the lowest since 2004. And as the groundwater extraction is lowest since 2004, we can say that the groundwater condition has definitely been improved. Now you see this thing in the article. In the article, the numbers have also been provided. For example, the groundwater was 437.60 BCM, that is a billion cubic meter, out of which 239.16 BCM was the extracted water. So these numbers have also been provided, but I'll not suggest you to read it or to remember it. Why? Because you'll not be able to retain it by the time the exam will come. So simply you need to have the comparative figures that in 2020 the groundwater extraction is lowest compared to 2004 and all the years in between. This is a very good kind of a condition. Now understand this particular thing, that though when we talk about the improvement is only marginal. Improvement is only marginal, not very much big improvement, and this marginal improvement can also be because of the natural conditions. For example, if you remember, we have discussed this particular article on Saturday also, because this report was released then. So we have seen this particular thing, that now what is happening, the canal water seepage has increased more, and as the canal water seepage has increased, it is recharging the groundwater. Then because of the natural conditions, the moisture into the soil is increasing, and that particular thing has increased the groundwater. So the point is that, see, when we talk about the groundwater, understand that the groundwater faces challenges on two aspects. Fine. Number one, there is illegal groundwater extraction. There is illegal groundwater extraction for the domestic purpose. The second is the groundwater extraction for the agricultural purpose, and there is one third more, the groundwater extraction for the industrial purpose. Okay, now today when we talk about the groundwater extraction, particularly the agricultural groundwater extraction, it is agricultural and industrial as well as domestic, all three are very much serious, but particularly the agricultural groundwater extraction in the Haryana, Punjab is severely depleting the groundwater resources, because understand this thing, Haryana, Punjab, they are growing paddy in much large number, but when we talk about the paddy can be sustained in only those areas where the minimum rainfall is 100 centimeter, but in Haryana, Punjab, the rainfall is in the range of 40 to 45 centimeter per year, but still the paddy is being grown. So how that water is being brought? That water is being brought from the groundwater extraction. So the agriculture has posed a very big problem. Now you see this particular thing, that there is no change into the agricultural patterns. From the so many of the years it is being said that we need to make sure that in the particular region only those crops are being grown which can be suitably accommodated, but there is no change into the agricultural patterns. Even for the domestic purposes the groundwater extraction has not come down, and even for the industrial purposes the groundwater extraction has not come down. So therefore whatever the change has happened, it has happened because of the natural factors. As the groundwater recharge by the canal seepage is more, fine, there are certain ponds which are now in the good condition, which are restoring the groundwater. That is something that is happening. So therefore the change that has come, will say that the change is only marginal. Fine, this is something. Now in this particular direction it has been provided that at the same time we might also see this thing, that it might be because of the parameters that have been used, they are different. For example, in this particular 2022 report, the number of groundwater blocks, wells that has been used for estimation, they were more than in the previous years. So as we have taken the data from more wells, blocks, etc., we might this particular thing that the percentage can change. Moreover, the groundwater, the blocks where the groundwater was critically low, fine, it was around 14%, which is similar to the previous years. So the point is that condition is not that much good as well. Now the regions with the most blocks with the critical groundwater, where they are, now you see this thing, the areas where there is a critical low groundwater, these areas are in Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Western Uttar Pradesh, and all these are the regions where the paddy cultivation is happening in large numbers, and for that, a lot of groundwater is being withdrawn. So that is something that is happening. So, indiscriminate groundwater withdrawal has impacted. After that, there are other endangered blocks where the water is very much low. They are in the Rajasthan, Gujarat. But in Rajasthan, Gujarat, the groundwater is low because of the arid climate condition. Okay, rainfall is less, climatic condition is poor, groundwater recharge is itself limited. Then Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, fine. There is the basically here also the groundwater availability is low because of the crystalline water storing aquifers. Okay, now understand this particular thing. What are the crystalline water storing? What is this reason? Understand this particular thing. That guys, when we talk about the groundwater, the groundwater actually is dependent on to the groundwater recharge. Now, how the groundwater recharge happens? Groundwater recharge happens by the percolation of the water. So, for example, there is the rain. Now, the rainwater will percolate through the soil and it will recharge the groundwater. But when we talk about the regions of the Deccan, for example, we talk about Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, here there are the crystalline rocks, and these crystalline rocks many a times don't allow the permeation or the percolation of the water. So therefore often the groundwater recharge becomes difficult into these particular regions. So therefore even in the regions of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh also, the groundwater is low because of the crystalline water storing aquifers that are there, which don't many a times allow the percolation of the water. Now when we talk about the groundwater, understand this particular thing. Fine, much needs to be done to conserve the groundwater. Now this is a foregone conclusion, it is not a new conclusion, it is a very old conclusion, but we are still not taking the groundwater conservation very seriously. There is no central law governing the use of the groundwater, and in many of the states the extraction, it is just being carried in a very easy kind of a manner, and extraction for domestic purposes, agricultural purposes, industrial purposes, it is being carried. Now a draft national water policy has recommended a shift in usage from water guzzling crops, fine, from water and prioritizing recycled over fresh and the recycled water for industrial purposes. Now you see this particular thing. What are the water guzzling crops? Water guzzling crops are, for example, sugarcane, for example, paddy. These are the water guzzling crops. We need to move beyond from that, and we need to plant such kind of crops which don't require a lot of water. For example, the paddy, for example, when we talk about the Haryana and Punjab, there are the when we talk about the millets, barleys, these are some kind of a crops that can be used. Moreover, we need to prioritize the recycled water, and here I want to tell you one particular word: grey water management. Grey water management is something that we need to focus. What is grey water management? Now you see, suppose, let's see this particular thing. You have used the water in your home for some domestic purposes, let's say for cleaning the dishes. Now that particular water which you have used for cleaning the dishes, it can be used for in your toilet, fine. Then that particular water which will be going into the sewage, then that water is to be cleaned, and after purification that water is again to be supplied into the homes. So what is happening? The same water is just being used, reused, resupplied into the homes. That is the groundwater management. Grey water management, sorry. We are not extracting all the time new water for our domestic requirements. So we need to go for grey water management. We need to prioritize recycled water, fine, for the industrial purposes, not the fresh water is to be provided. Moreover, water should not be considered as a free private resource, fine, which is unlimited. Rather, water needs to be seen as a precious resource, okay, and the wasteful consumption is needed to be avoided. Now understand this particular thing. It has been said repeatedly that if there will be third world war, it might be, if there will be third world war, and if it is happening onto the resource, it will be the water, which is a resource on which the third world war might be fought. So therefore all these things are needed to be focused upon. Now moving on to the next article. Behind the smoke screen around private climate finance. Now this particular article we will see with respect to the GS paper number 2, climate negotiations Okay, so when we talk about the international relations, within the international relation, climate negotiations are an important aspect, and GS paper number 3, fine, COP27 negotiations, climate change negotiations. Okay, there also we'll see this particular article. So both GS2, GS3, the article can be important. Now, let's talk about the article. So basically guys, the article is talking about the climate finance fine which was to be achieved way back in 2020, but up till now the climate finance has not been achieved. Now you see this particular thing guys, that actually I have told you this earlier also, there is a principle of CBDR which regulates the climate negotiations. CBDR stands for common but differentiated responsibility. It means that when we talk about the climate change, it is a or conservation of the climate, it is a common responsibility. All the countries have to make sure that they are doing their they are paying the efforts for conserving the climate, but at the same time it is a differentiated responsibility. Differentiated responsibility means that all the countries need not to do similar. Some countries will do more, some countries will do less. Actually the developed countries, they have polluted the most into the historic times, so the developed countries responsibility is more. The developing countries responsibility or the underdeveloped countries responsibility is less. So there is the CBDR, principle of common but differentiated responsibility, and this principle is the core of all the climate change negotiation that is going on. And as a part of the CBDR, what happened, there was the goal of climate finance which was promised in 2009. In 2009, it was provided that because developed countries were the historical polluters, they will provide $100 billion in finance per year to the developing countries by the year 2020. Actually, before 2020, the $100 billion per year were to be provided. But up till now, this $100 billion per year has not come. Okay, now, right now, there is the 27th Conference of Parties of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. So under the UNFCCC, right now the 27th Conference of Parties is going on in the Egypt. These negotiations will be over by 18th of November. Okay, so they are going on. And as this UNFCCC 27 COP is going on, there what has happened, the UNFCCC Standing Committee has released a report, and in this particular report they have provided that actually how much finance has actually been made available to the developing countries by the developed world. And they have said this particular thing, that the target was to mobilize 100 billion per year, but this particular target has not been achieved by 2020. Now this particular standing committee, it has relied on to the data given by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and this data I have told you earlier also. Now the standing committee of UNFCCC, they provided that as of 2020, only $83.3 billion per year has been achieved. Actually in 2020, $83.3 billion came. Now every year it has fluctuated. In 2020, $83.3 billion came. Now how this money came? $68.3 billion was in public finances, means that the government of the developed country have contributed, and $13 billion were mobilized into the private finances. For example, there are the private organizations which are involved into the green energy, green technology. They have invested the money into the developing countries. So out of the total money that has came, that is $68 billion came by the public sector and $13 billion came by the private sector. Anyhow, the $100 billion target has not been met. Now, moreover, understand, as this particular thing is coming, the deadline has already been crossed. Now, listen very carefully. Actually, the developed countries are changing their stand now. Now you see, always there is a controversy that goes on between the developing and the developed countries, between in the under the UNFCCC COP climate change. It goes on, it goes even into the WTO, at multiple forums it goes. Here what is happening, listen very carefully. Developed country is providing this particular thing, that actually the $100 billion that has to come, it has to come by both the private as well as the public sector. Okay, and an estimate has been given. So basically in 2016, a report was released by the developed countries, and the name of the report was Roadmap to USD $100 billion. And in this particular report, the developed countries provided this particular thing, that by 2020, $100 billion has to come, we agree, but that particular money will be divided in two parts. According to the report, it was said $67 billion had to come by the public finances, government will give, and $33 billion has to come by the private finances, that the private players, private investors will be investing. That is the breakout they have given. Now what they are saying, they are saying that okay, public sector governments have already achieved their target. How? Listen very carefully. If I tell you the OECD report that we discussed just few minutes back, OECD report provided that $83.3 billion had come in 2020. Now what is the breakup? Breakup is that $68.3 billion had come by the public finances and remaining majorly had come from the private finances. So the governments of the developed countries in the COP27 are justifying. They say that we are not at fault. Why? Because we promised that we will bring the 60, if you remember, they said that, just a minute, yes, so they said that we promised to bring 67, but how much we have brought? 68.3 billion. Remaining $33 billion was to be brought by whom? The private sector. But what they have done, they have brought just $13.1 billion. So it is the private sector which is at fault, not the public sector. So what is happening? The governments of the developed countries such as the USA, Europe, etc., they are just shrugging away from their responsibility. They are just shrugging away from their responsibility. That is happening. Fine. So this is a kind of a dismal failure at the point of the developed countries. Now the developing countries need to push forward for this particular thing. Now, as the target of $100 billion has not been achieved, what has happened? The last year, that is the COP26 that was held into the Glasgow, there the developed countries, they come out with a new kind of an agenda. There in the COP26, the developed countries came out with the Climate Finance Delivery Plan, CFPD. And this climate finance delivery plan gave a new deadline. It gave a deadline of 2023. So as per this climate finance delivery plan, a deadline of 2023 was given, by which they said that $100 billion will be provided. Okay. Now up till now what has happened? This climate finance delivery plan, which was released last year, its progress report has been released, and it says that mobilizing private climate finance has proven to be challenging and particularly limited for adoption. So they are again repeating the same thing. They said this thing that private sector should bring fund, but actually bringing that money is challenging. So understand that right now when we talk about giving the money, the climate finance to the developing country, it cannot be delayed for any one moment. Why? Because already the 6th assessment report, which was released last year by the IPCC, there the 6th assessment report of IPCC have provided very clearly that before 2040 the temperature rise will be into the range of 1.5 degrees Celsius. So the earth is heating, and in that particular capacity, who will be the most impacted one? The developing countries will be the most impacted one. But the developing countries don't have the capacity, they don't have the finances, so they are to be provided the support. And in this times, the developed countries need to provide the financing. They should not push the burden onto the name of the private finance. They should not just shy away from their responsibility. That is something that is happening. Moreover, now as this CFDP progress report, climate finance delivery report, has already recognized that bringing private sector investment is challenging, so the public sector, the governments, should pick up their guards and should contribute to the developing countries. So this is all, guys, about this particular article. I hope that you have understood, and this is in fact a very good article for our examination. Directly on such kind of a thing, question can be asked. Now moving to the next article. The curious case of EWS, economically weaker section reservation. Now guys, we have, I think, taken 3-4 articles on this particular line in the past few days. So actually what has happened, first of all, let me give you the background and then I'll go into this particular article. But before giving the background, this article will be important for GS paper number 2 polity. GS paper number 2 polity, or within the topic of the matters of reservation. Now understand this particular thing. What has happened? Just a minute. Yes. So 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act was passed by the government in 2019, and this 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act provided for 10% of the reservation for the economically weaker sections. 10% reservation for the economically weaker section. Now this particular thing was challenged into the Supreme Court, find in the Janhit Abhiyan versus Union of India case. In that particular case, it was said that this 10% limit this 10% reservation is unconstitutional. Why? Because number one, it has provided this particular thing that when the reservation is given, 10% reservation is given to the EWS. Okay, there it has been very clearly provided that that reservation cannot be given to the SC, STs and OBCs. So it is discriminating against that. Then second thing, it has been provided that the constitution never provided an economic criteria for reservation, only social backwardness was a criteria. So therefore it was challenged. Now the Supreme Court has given the judgment, and Supreme Court has provided that 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act is valid. So EWS reservation will be given. Okay, now the author has questioned this particular Supreme Court judgment. Author had said this particular thing, that when we talk about the reservations are intrinsically linked to the historical injustice that have been done to the Shudras and Dalits, and to make up for those historical injustice only the reservations were given. Even Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and E.V. Ramaswamy Periyar, they spoke about reservation as a means of providing representation and not a means for poverty alleviation. But now what government has done? Government, just in order to address the poverty of certain people, is giving them reservation onto the economic criteria. So it has been said that actually seeing the aspect, the design of the reservation, seeing the viewpoints of the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and E.V. Ramaswamy, the 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act, it doesn't make any sense, but anyhow the Supreme Court has upheld that. Now understand this particular thing. Historically, the three varnas, find the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, they had the access to all the learning. In the colonial era also, when the Britishers came, what happened? The modernization and democratization came. But with that modernization and democratization, the traditional monopolies, earlier they have monopoly in trade, rituals, they had the most powerful positions. But with the coming of the Britishers, what happened? The basically the bureaucracy, legal practice, professorship, okay, the professions, they become more important. And there also, who got the advantage? The three varnas, because they were the people who always learned, who always got educated. Fine. So therefore even the Jyotirao Phule, Periyar, Ambedkar, they wanted to annihilate the arbitrary reservation for certain profession being implemented on mythful mythical stories. Now see this thing, don't get confused. They are not saying that reservation should not be there. They say that when the occupations for certain particular varnas, when the occupations for particular caste people were reserved, fine, which is majorly for the higher caste, they wanted to remove. For example, who can be a priest? A priest can only be a Brahmin. Okay, who can be a warrior? A warrior can only be a Kshatriya. So the position of a warrior has been reserved for Kshatriya, a position of a priest has been reserved for a Brahmin. So these kind of things, these social reformers always fought. Now you see this particular thing, that the EWS reservation at it has come. It has provided that a household family, if it is earning 8 lakh rupees per annum, less than 8 lakh rupees per annum, then they can avail the EWS quota. Now when we talk about, guys, India's poverty line, so India's poverty line stands at 32 rupees in urban areas and 27 rupees per day into the rural areas. Now this particular poverty line has been given onto the basis of the Tendulkar committee. So Tendulkar committee has given this as a poverty line. But now what we have done in EWS, when we have the 8 lakh rupees as a criteria, we are indirectly saying this particular thing, that a person, now if you just divide 8 lakh by 365, it means that a household earning 2222 rupees per day is economically weak. How, when the poverty line is at 32 and 27, how a person earning 2200 rupees is also being considered as economically weak? This is a dispute that has been raised on this particular reservation that has been given. Now understand this particular thing. Supreme Court has also allowed one more thing in this particular entire scenario. Now you see this thing, this 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act was also challenged to the Supreme Court, that it has breached the 50% limit. Now what was the 50% limit? In the Indira Sahani case, it was provided that maximum reservations cannot go beyond 50%. But already, as we were providing 27% reservation to OBC, 15% reservation to SCs and 7.5% reservation to STs, 49.5% reservation already were being provided. Now we had added 10% more reservation for EWS. So total reservation today in India are at 59.5%. So this 50% ceiling has been breached. Now this particular 50% ceiling that has been breached, that can be indirectly be good for good for sometimes for the backward, because you see this particular thing what Periyar envisaged that there needs to be the proportional representation. Okay, now guys understand this particular thing. See, when we talk about today the backwardness, according to the Mandal Commission that came in 1979, listen very carefully, the Mandal Commission that came in 1979, it provided that a population of the backward people is 52%, but reservation was given only 27%. Why? Because 50% limit cannot be broken. Already there was reservation to SCs and STs that were given, so we have the maximum limit to go to 27% only, because 50% limit was there. So it has been provided that anyhow, as 50% limit has been breached, now the communities whose population is more but reservation is less for them, they can be accommodated. That can be the good thing that can come out of this entire development. Okay, so that is all guys about this particular article. Fine. Now beyond this what we have discussed, I would not suggest you to go more than that. Now moving to the next article. Population criteria for new Eklavya schools impractical, says parliamentary panel. Okay, now, so basically guys, when we talk about the tribal people, okay, the matters with respect to the tribal people will be important with respect to the GS paper number 2 governance, tribal governance. Now you see this thing, tribal people, they have always had the very low socio-economic and educational indicators. Why? Because the tribal people have always stayed away from the mainstream society, and as they have stayed away from the mainstream society, there was always a challenge that how to bring their development. If we interfere too much, fine, that particular thing will not be appreciated, but if we just leave them, that will not be appreciated. Britishers particularly had followed the policy of isolationism, and under the isolationism, Britishers kept these people, tribals, isolated into the forest, but that led to their neglect. But at the same time, bringing them into the mainstream is also not very much required. So whenever the development for the tribal people is there, we need to be very sensitive in that particular direction. And even when the education is concerned, the same thing goes in with respect to the education of the tribal people also. Now, in order to address the tribal people's education, government recently came out with the Eklavya Residential Model School Scheme. Now, under the Eklavya Residential Model School Scheme, it was provided that within the tribal regions, these special schools will be built, which will be catering to the educational requirements of the tribal people. Find their pedagogy will be different, because the tribal peoples, they never had any experience of education most of the times. So there will be the different pedagogy, the value systems, the education philosophy will be different. So Eklavya Residential Model School Scheme has been launched. Now, the Tribal Affairs Ministry is taking forward this particular scheme, and as per the Eklavya Residential Model School, the plan is that fine, there will be a 15 acre of every school will be having the land of 15 acres. So 15 acres land, on 15 acres land, the Eklavya model residential schools will be built. Fine, and they will be built in sub-districts. They will be built in at the level of sub-districts, and wherever there is the population of ST community of more than 20,000, or where they make more than 50% of the total population. So where there is a population of STs more than 20,000, and where they also make 50% more of the total population. Okay, there these Eklavya residential model schools will be opened up. Fine. So again I'm repeating, 20,000 population and at least 50% population need to be the tribal population. There these Eklavya residential model schools will be opened up. Now on this particular scheme, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Social Justice and Empowerment had recommended that we need to tweak this Eklavya residential model scheme a little bit. Why? They have said this particular thing, that there will be a problem of acquiring land in the several of the districts. Okay. Now tribal people, most of the time they are living into the forest. In the forested regions or into the dense jungles, having 15 acres of land piece might become a very big challenge. And if that land is to be brought, how you will be bringing that particular land? fine, that land will be diverted. Now actually these lands are the ones which are being used by the tribal people. They are collecting the minor fire forest produce from there. They are just doing their some subsistence kind of an agriculture, so their land will be diverted for the schools, and that might be leading to the violation of the Forest Rights Act of 2006, where the guarantee, where the land titles have been recognized for them. So identifying the land, either they will be coming in conflict with FRA, or they will be coming in conflict with the Forest Act, or it will be coming into the other environmental laws, etc. So therefore it has been provided. Moreover, the population of SDs, many times they are living into the scattered regions. They are not consolidated at one place, that you will be able to find 20,000 tribal people at one place, and all of them are the ones who are actually the ones, they are the ones who are the most what I mean to say is that, see, population is scattered, and the criteria is that, fine, we will be opening these Eklavya model schools where they have 20,000 people, or 50% people is the tribal. So finding that might not be very easy at most of the times. So therefore there might be the challenges in this particular scheme. Now when we talk about the GS paper number 2, government welfare schemes and its critical evaluation is clearly mentioned there. So there also we can give such kind of an examples to complement our answers. Now moving to the next article, a sense of an ending. Okay, now this particular article, guys, already we have discussed with you on the Saturday's newspaper analysis. So basically, guys, what this article is talking about, this article is talking about the release of the convicts who were charged for the assassination of the former Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi. Okay, now in this particular direction, guys, the article is discussing about. So basically, let me give you a little bit of the background, and then we'll go in this particular article. So basically, when we talk about the former Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi's assassination was carried in 1991. And after his assassination, what happened? There were many people who were arrested, and out of that, just a minute, there were actually 26 people who got arrested. Now these 26 people originally were given a death penalty by a trial court. Now the matter reached to the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court, out of the 26 people, released the 19 people. It acquitted the 19 people. So only 7 people were there. Who finally got convicted into the Rajiv Gandhi's assassination case. Now these 7 people were given originally the death penalty. Death penalty was given originally to them. But actually, gradually, fine, from time to time, what happened? By 2014, all these people's death penalty has been commuted to the life imprisonment. It commuted to the life imprisonment that happened by 2014. Okay. The Supreme Court commuted to death sentence to life in 2014. That happened. Now, after 2014, what happened? These prisoners, these 7 people who were into the jail, they applied to the governor of the Tamil Nadu for the pardon. It was provided that they have spent, as of now, they have spent more than 30 years into the jail. So they said this particular thing, that they were not the mastermind in the assassination of the former Prime Minister, rather they were used as an accomplice, and many of them said that they even don't knew that they were becoming an accomplice in that particular thing. So they made an argument that they should be given the pardon. Okay, so they applied to the governor of the Tamil Nadu. Now what happened? Governor of the Tamil Nadu, in 2018, Tamil Nadu government recommended to the governor that you can give these people pardon. You can give these particular people's life imprisonment can be given a pardon. That was suggested. But what happened? Governor did not took any decisions in 2018, 19, 20. Fine, he did not took any decision. Then what happened? After sitting on that mercy petition for nearly 2.5 to 3 years, governor then referred that particular petition to the president, and then president did not decided that particular petition for again more than 1.5 years. Fine. So therefore, what happened? Out of these 7 convicts, one of a convict, that is the AG Perarivalan, he approached the Supreme Court and he said this particular thing, that we have applied for the mercy petition. In 2018, but up till now the mercy petition has not been signed, and it is leading to the mental torture. Then the Supreme Court, what did? Supreme Court in 2022 Okay, in the AG Perarivalan case, Supreme Court gave the mercy to this AG Perarivalan on to the ground that governor has not taken a decisions up till now. Okay, now what has happened? The remaining six people, now they approach the Supreme Court. Remaining six people, they approach the Supreme Court that they should also be given, basically they should also be released as the AG Perarivalan has been released. And now what has happened, the Supreme Court extended it to these people also, that as AG Perarivalan was released, they will also be released. So what has happened now, all the people have been released. Is it clear or not? Now in this particular direction guys, understand this particular thing, that as of now the article 161 of the constitution is coming into the question mark. Now article 1, under the article 161, under the article 161, the governor can give the pardon, but the point comes that can governor give the pardon as at his or her own, or the governor has to act on the aid and advice. Now it has been provided that the government actually had to act on aid and advice given by the Council of Ministers, but actually that has not happened. Governor has not acted, and rather what governor did, governor referred that particular petition to, first of all did not decide it and then referred it to the president, which was unfair. And on that particular ground, now the Supreme Court has finally given this particular thing, had given the approval. Now understand this particular thing guys. First line, I want to clarify, don't get confused. First line, it's written that the political parties campaigned for the release of the 4 convicts on death row and 3 serving life terms. Okay, so total 7 are there. So okay, don't get carried away, there were only the 4 people or what is happening, fine. So there were the 7 people. However, that is not very important for your exam also, but for the sake of understanding this article, these things actually helps us. Fine. So therefore, now actually the Supreme Court judgment is very important because it also defines the scope of the power of governor. Okay, governor has a limited power and has to abide by the Council of Minister and Chief Minister. That is all about it. And now moving to the next article. G20 summit to focus on food and energy security. Now guys, understand this particular thing, that the Prime Minister will be going on today, Monday, that is the 14th of November. Prime Minister will go to Bali. And in Bali from tomorrow, that is the November 15 and November 16, there will be the G20 summit that will be organized. And in this G20 summit, what will be the focus areas? Focus areas will be the food security, energy security. These will be the focus areas. Okay, now understand this particular thing. Right now you are not required to go too much into this particular article. Why? Because from tomorrow this particular summit will start, and as the summit will go on, we'll see there what will happen. So right now the Prime Minister will be focusing on the food security, energy security, and the next year we will be becoming the president. After the December, India will become the president for the G20, and when India will become the president, India will be focusing on environment and gender issues. So as this summit will happen, we'll see what is happening there. So that is all about it. And now moving to the next article. POCSO is not meant to criminalize the consensual relations, Delhi High Court. Now if you are following the newspaper analysis regularly, we have followed this particular article multiple number of times into the last week. So what actually is happening, guys? This article is important for GS paper number 2, issues related to the children. Now the POCSO stands for Protection of the Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, and POCSO provides that a person till the age of 18 will be considered as a child, and a person till the age of 18, that particular person cannot give consent. It means that if a sexual intercourse is carried with a person of 18 year, a girl of 18 year, even if the girl has given the consent, that consent will not count. And a person carrying a sexual intercourse, that particular person will be charged under the rape. That is something that has happened. Now guys, in this particular direction, there are the multiple issues that have come. Recently, the Karnataka High Court noted this particular thing, that many a times teenagers, they are in the relationships and they are making and they also involve into the physical sexual relations also. The girl might be into the age of 16-17 years, she had given the consent, but when the parents of the girl know that thing, they charge that boy under the rape, and that boy also doesn't most of the times know that particular law. That is something that is happening. Okay, guys, just give me 1 minute. Okay, so that particular boy also might not be knowing that this particular issue has happened. Just a minute. Okay, so that boy might not have that particular boy might not even be knowing that that particular thing was a, just a minute. That boy most of the times might not even be knowing that particular thing, that that was a crime. Okay, and in that particular cases that boy gets punished. So basically when we talk about the POXO was meant for protecting the children. The POXO was meant for protecting the children from the sexual abuse, but it was not meant to criminalize the consensual, it was not meant to criminalize the consensual consensual relationships. But this particular law is not being used for into the right manner. So therefore the article the Delhi High Court has recognized that we need to look this particular matter, and if there is a amendment that might be brought. Fine. So this is all about this particular article. Extra regional fishing fleets present in the Indian Ocean Navy. Okay, now okay, now actually guys, what has happened, the Navy has provided this particular thing, that there are many of the foreign vessels, there are the many of the foreigner vessels that are present into the Indian Ocean region. The Indian Navy provides that more than 200 Chinese fishing vessels, okay, and even the vessels from the European Union, vessels from the European Unions, the ships from the countries which are far beyond the region of the Indian Ocean, they are present in this particular region. Okay, guys, I hope that the video is coming clear. Please tell me, is video clear? Okay guys, I hope that now the video is coming. Okay, so the Indian Navy has provided this particular thing, that actually into the region of Indian Ocean there are many of the ships that are there. Okay, the ships from the China, they are there, the ships from the Indian from the European Union, they are there, and these ships, what they are doing, they are involving in the illegal, they are involving into the illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. Fine. And beyond the exclusive economic zone of India, they are doing this illegal and unsustainable, unrecognized fishing. Okay, now in this particular direction guys, already we have the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas UN clause, and UN clause provides this particular thing, that the coastal nations are responsible for addressing the IUU, that is the, what is this IUU? IUU stands for illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. So India is responsible, that India need to make sure that within the Indian Ocean the unregulated illegal ship fishing should not happen. Fine, unregulated fishing should not happen. But actually what is happening, the Chinese ships are coming, European ships are coming, and they are doing the fishing in this particular region. Now in this particular direction guys, the India has also collaborated with the Quad countries, and Quad countries are jointly monitoring this particular region. And within the Quad there is the Indo-Pacific maritime domain awareness that have been developed. Moreover, there is also the Indian Navy which is leading the Fusion, which is leading to the Information Fusion Center Indian Ocean Region, IFCIOR. In this particular thing, what they are doing the regional monitoring. They are making sure that the ships that are there into the region, they are not impacting the maritime safety security. So the Navy has simply provided that these illegal ships are doing the fishing and it needs to be stopped. Fine. So that is all, guys, about this particular article. Please don't go beyond this particular thing, because this is just one of a dimension that has come. So when we talk about the Indian Ocean region and Indian Ocean region's challenges, within the Indian Ocean region challenges, these particular challenges of illegal fishing, fine, it is also going to be an important one. Now, the next article, new regulation for awarding PhDs. Okay, so guys, recently the UGC has changed its laws and had provided a new regulation for the PhDs. Now the PhDs, their thesis have not to be published into the peer reviewed journals. Now this particular article we have discussed elaborately on to the 12th of the November. Okay, so this entire article we have taken up. So rather than going in this particular article, I'll suggest you that please watch the video on to the 12th of the November Saturday analysis. There I have covered this entire article. Nothing beyond that has been given. Moreover, you don't need to go too much into the detail also in this particular direction. And now the mains practice question for the today. So question reads that, do you think in order to deal with the problem of climate change, grant-based and concessional international public climate finance will continue to play a key role in addressing the needs and priorities of developing countries? Fine. So please write this particular answer. It will be a 15 marker question for GS paper number 3. GS paper number 3, issues related to the environment. So that is all for today, guys. I hope that you have understood and you have liked the video. So that is all for today. If you have liked, please do hit the like button. Now we'll be meeting tomorrow. Please do leave your lovely comments. Now we'll be meeting